Good morning, everybody. Welcome to EPM Live and our latest installment of our webinar series entitled Realizing the Business Value of PPM and What to Expect when Implementing a PPM Solution and Process. My name is Jim Patterson with EPM Live, and I'm happy to be here with you this morning. Just so that you know, you're here live with us today. This session is being recorded and will be made available to you for future reference if there's things and topics that you'd like to revisit or to share with others in your organization. First, a little bit of those of you not familiar with EPM Live, just so you know, we are a global leader in the field of enterprise project, portfolio, and just overall work management solutions. We have been in this field in matter of subject matter expertise since 1999. We've been in PPM consulting since that point in time, and the development of the solutions that we have and the services that we provide are really based upon that experience and best practices we've adopted over the years. We provide solutions in this realm that are pre-built, meaning it's fast to get them up, can actually be delivered to you in a SaaS model on a fairly instant basis. And we offer these solutions on both a SaaS or online model as well as licensed solutions for an on-premise deployment in your own environment. We're really a full service type of company that provides you any of the software, online services, deployment services, or professional services you might need to make these deployments effective and of high value to you and your organization. We've got a lot of customers with the solutions that we have, over 5,000 customers today in over 38 countries around the world. So we're getting good reception from the marketplace. From an analyst perspective, we're getting a lot of recognition as far as the things that we're doing, reviews, awards, etc., and in our inclusion in the Gartner Group's PPM Market Scope and Magic Quadrant for the last 3 years is something we're very proud of. So we do have a substantial footprint out there in the marketplace. But enough about us. Let's talk about the concept or general concepts about project portfolio management or PPM value. Over time, PPM and the value that can be achieved has really evolved. Today's business value that to be realized from a PPM solution and process is more than what we traditionally thought back in the old days. We always thought we could get things like strategic alignment of our investments, being sure that we're working on the right things before we work on them, improved resource management, understanding where our resources are being applied and are we applying them to things that are of strategic value to the company, and then just overall visibility into business initiatives so that we can see where they're at, how they're doing, and the health of such, and making decisions and adjustments according to those. But beyond the things in that area that we've traditionally gotten value from in PPM, today's PPM can help do other things. It can really, literally, help you transform business execution. The concept of doing better portfolio management and being successful in that discipline can really lead to just overall business success and also can help streamline and make businesses more effective in the execution of their work and execution of their strategies. Today's PPM can also provide executives, stakeholders, and project teams, meaning everybody with a hand into the process with new ways to collaborate, meaning that they can find better ways to communicate, effectively get things done quickly, and really share information in a much more effective way given tools that have become available technology-wise over recent years. And in general, we can just get work done more productively and effectively without duplication of effort, without bottlenecks, without communication gaps, I would guess, in the way that we're doing that and being able to streamline and automate those processes. The overall PPM purpose, and the way Gartner has stated it, an appropriate PPM application should match some immediate functional needs and also support a successive roadmap toward improving PPM maturity. So we really should meet and address immediate needs, pain points, and other things that we're trying to fix within the organization. But it is an evolution, so it should be, when we first start, kind of our stepping stone into just an overall evolution and really towards continuous improvement and getting better at PPM and getting more mature in that discipline over time, hence making us more and more effective for our business. So let's talk about specifically the business value of PPM. First, let's start with the challenges that are facing organizations today. Now, if you're a company or a person who is actively considering a PPM solution, then more than likely you have reached a certain stage where certain things are happening. Typically, and this is common in most organizations that we deal with today, that to at least some degree there are disparate processes and entities and data in the organization. And these disparate items could be in the realms of projects, demand, resource, portfolio, and just time management activities. What do we mean by being disparate? Maybe there's no consistency. Perhaps people are using different tools or methods to basically manage the projects, to kind of track and capture demand, to plan their resources, to track or even just log or inventory the portfolio of projects and initiatives that they're working on. And people may be capturing time and other things like that in other different tools within an organization. So for example, people might be using different tools for project management like Microsoft Project or Excel or Word documents or even just PowerPoint slides. And the idea being is that those things have different data points, different methods, and just the processes by which those things will flow through the organization are not common and similar. So meaning that there's no rhyme or reason or similarity to the way people are managing these things within the organization. What this does is it leads to a lack of accountability and inefficient business process. By the time you translate, aggregate, communicate, those types of things in different forms and formats, there's a lot of wasted manual effort as well as interpretation as people are doing things and maybe using different terminology and different data forms. So common issues that come out of this also include the fact that there's ad hoc or ineffective prioritization decisions, or maybe prioritization isn't happening at all. Some folks have intake processes and they just do what's on their plate until they choke and can't do anymore, or find out that they can't deliver over time. So without common tools and common ways to do that, there's really no way to prioritize an effective roster of proposed, potential, and mix them in with your active projects or workloads. There's also typically, and this is where big cost savings can be achieved, time-consuming data gathering for management reports. If data is scattered around the organization in these disparate data formats, for example, in disparate processes, people to get a comprehensive view or provide status reporting on projects and other resource management, other things, typically have to manually go to a variety of data sources, compile them, gather them into a common format, making it a manual and time-consuming process, to be quite frank, to be projects in and of themselves just to provide the data. Also common issues are like resource bottlenecks. Without having common tools and having visibility to what the resource commitments are overall, the tendency is to over-allocate resources, meaning you can inadvertently, without that visibility, provide a scenario where you're asking resources to do the same thing for different projects or different initiatives at the same time, and when they all come together, something's got to give, meaning those bottlenecks mean things don't happen when people plan. Related to that is really the lack of visibility into resource utilization overall. To what degree are we over or under allocated on our resources? And we tend to be over allocated given the way we try to resource our organizations in a lean way these days. But without a PPM solution and common visibility, visibility into how we're utilizing resources and whether or not we are overtaxing our resources capacity is hard to come by from an informational perspective. And just general inconsistent approaches to planning and managing projects. So meaning that there's no common method, no consistency of delivery, and no high probability of consistency of outcome if we're managing projects in a variety or just a disparate number of different ways, leaving it up to maybe the individual's innovation on how they would like to manage their projects. So organizations that successfully improve their PPM processes and also adopt a good PPM tool usually realize most or all of the following business benefits. And we're going to go into some of the details on these individually. But strategic alignment across project portfolios, better collaboration across organizational silos, improved decision-making and accountability, streamlined PMO processes and templates, and just overall improved organizational productivity. And we'll talk about that and how that may apply to a PPM tool as we go on through these. So let's start with strategic alignment across project portfolios. Aligning resources with strategic priorities, just by the nature of it, is challenging for any organization. Making sure that resources are working on the highest priority things or the things that are strategically aligned with the overall goals and objectives of the organization can be a daunting task. But if we provide mechanisms and technology to capture all work across the company, and this really should mean project and non-project work, major benefits of this can be an improved PM process that deliver prioritization and trade-off decisions being able to be made with full visibility to business impact, because we're capturing the total workload and we can start making trade-off decisions by seeing everything that is potentially to be put on our plate. So the idea is that those types of decisions can be made if we capture the information to make those decisions with that. Also, we can avoid the trap of actually working on low-value projects or lower-value projects than other ones that we might potentially be considering, and also avoiding rogue work, those kind of desk projects that kind of come out of nowhere that seem to be people's pet projects, or things that maybe suck resources that could be being applied to more strategically benefit or investment-oriented benefit to the organization. The other thing in that realm is oftentimes if you have different organizational silos, very often different parts of the organization may be working on projects to solve the same problem. So you end up with duplicate projects trying to do the same thing, where good portfolio management across that or a good PPM process and solution will help bring visibility to that and preclude that from being done in multiple efforts. So what we mean by all work together, there's all different types of work in an organization. Some of it may be project related, some of it not. But having one funnel and a governance process or work streams through that in a common solution allows you to get visibility to all of what the intake is on this, whether they're projects, changes, service requests, application portfolio, management type of related things. The idea is within a common solution, you may have different work types. Each of them may have their own nuance or different work stream process in the way that they actually get processed and approved through an organization. But if you're doing it in a common tool set through a common PPM process, you have visibility into all of this workload, so you can start looking at, for example, the resource impact of that, looking at reporting on what the total workload is all these things coming in within our capacity to deliver on the demand that's coming on through, and being able to do reporting, metrics, and dashboards on all of that. So basically establishing business value by visibility and better management of all these different work types is a natural output of having a solution that's fully functional and does all work. The other piece is to really quantify and characterize that work. So if you really want to assess alignment and value of a potential piece of work, whether it's a project or some other type of minor initiative or even a service request, things that you want to capture, and these things should all be configurable and be tailored to the type of business that you're in. But be able to assess things like how well it strategically aligns with corporate objectives. You know, should it have a value based upon it providing either cost reduction or revenue increases, for example, to the organization, and to what degree, so that they can actually be rated by value financially against other potential candidate projects or work efforts in the organization. And just other things like, you know, rating these things on how risky they are and whether or not they improve employee satisfaction or grow your markets, or whatever those metrics are that you use to kind of grade the worthiness or the value of a particular effort. Those things should all be in here and really provide almost a weighted scoring metric so that you can actually do some objective selection rather than maybe personality-driven or power-driven type of selection of projects, to make sure we're working on the right things that deliver the best return to our organization. And if we do all that, we can then really start taking objective measures on our projects, whether they be potential or active projects in the mix. You know, looking at what business initiatives we align with, looking at what it's going to cost from a budget, what it's going to take from a schedule perspective, what kind of metrics like return on investment or net present value, or weighted prioritization scores so that you have objective ranking and comparison between different projects that you may potentially be looking at, so that when you maybe get demand that exceeds our ability to deliver from a resource or from a dollars perspective, what are the ones that we should prioritize and pick first, or which are the first ones that should maybe be cut if we have to do some constraint-based analysis. And the idea is that this can all be captured in a common tool set with visibility, not only from the upfront intake, evaluation, and selection process, but then being able to carry forward this and do these types of gradations and measurements through the active life cycle as we're executing on these projects. So the metrics that we're talking about doing consistent valuation of is really being able to use measurements from a number of different dimensions. You know, things like this example of a bubble chart might give me an idea of what is the strategic alignment versus, say, the risk or the cost or benefit of that. And then being able to look at the size of the project and whether or not we're working on things that are fit into the right sweet spot. If we're looking at it from an alignment perspective, is there something that's high alignment and low cost? That might be a good project for us to work on, or high alignment score and high value of return on investment. Whatever quadrant that is would be a sweet spot for those types of things. So the idea is whatever metrics you're using, you can look at this from a multiple set of dimensions and also multiple ways so that you can have different matrices on the ways to value these projects and make selection and make sure that the preponderance of projects that we're working on fit into high value areas. The other key thing is being able to really do the trade-offs. You know, analytic tools that will allow you to analyze and prioritize, and based upon those prioritizations, be able to say, you know, what are the requirements, or what are the costs, or what are the resources we're going to need if we do all these projects, and maybe give us the ability to either deselect lower priority projects and see what the requirements are for that, or possibly defer projects and slide them out into time, and be able to look and see what those things are that or the model or the mix of projects that makes the most sense for our organization within our constraints. At the end of the day, a good portfolio management tool will allow you to really leverage almost any metric that's important to you. You know, there are the traditional usual metrics that are done in project portfolio management, but other organizations have adopted also variations of those that are particular to their organization. And the idea is that you need the flexibility and the configurability to accommodate whatever metrics make the most sense for the industry you're in, or the type of organization, or the type of projects that and work that you're dealing with. So another area of business benefit is better collaboration across organizational silos. A lot of organizations have functional groups, functional organizations, departments, business units, whatever they may be. And if a PPM process and tool is easy enough to use so that it makes it easy for people to adopt it, it will then enable teams across organizational silos to collaborate. To get this to work effectively, you need a broad-based adoption, meaning that you want to get as much utilization and as much adoption and as much buy-in with this as you possibly can across these different silos. Some of the things that we'll get out of better collaboration, and one of the things that we do, you know, we work in a fairly easy-to-use web-based environment based on SharePoint, whether it's either in our online or on-premise. So it's a familiar technology to a lot of folks, meaning they don't have to learn a new UI and new things like that. But some of the things that the organizations can now collaborate on effectively, if there's broad-based adoption, is one, project and resource manager collaboration on project staffing, meaning the whole concept of project managers saying, hey, this is the skill sets I need, and going to functional groups in a matrix organization and being able to say, here's what I need and here's to what degree we think we need them. And having that resource management group or those functional areas being able to come back and say, these are who we have and this is, you know, who we can allocate to your project. And have that byplay back and forth between the project and functional managers is something that's a really good benefit. And then also always having an eye on what the already current set of commitments are so that you know what yet another assignment or commitment will be doing to the overall workload of the organization. Not be caught by surprise with those resource bottlenecks like we talked about earlier on. Another piece is financials. Another aspect of managing projects is the financial aspect. And if we have broad-based PPM tool sets, finance can more easily provide regular updates on project costs. You know, our typical project management system is managing resources and time, but there's all those procured costs and other things that are happening in your ERP or your financial system. If we have a home and an ability for finance to interact with the system, we can provide more regular updates on the total cost of project and get a comprehensive view of our projects in a well-designed system. Other parts is the broad adoption enables real-time visibility into project portfolio status. What that means is instead of having them be research projects and having to seek out the information, then compile it, and then put it in a form that people can consume and understand, if all the participants are actively and doing their own piece in a small way of keeping that status up to date and providing that, let's just say, automated visibility to the project, then the turnaround time on getting project status is pretty much real time. And getting information to folks and rolled up and bubbled up through the organization to the various people that we're accountable to becomes a much more streamlined and automated process. And in some ways, almost a push-button process. And the only compelling thing that needs to happen is people just need to keep their data up to date, as opposed to providing it in a format and building a report from the ground up. So what this does is it allows executives and project managers to ensure that business results are being achieved, so that when our projects are in flight and we look at the standards that we committed to, say, in our business cases, et cetera, that we see that it's living up to the schedule objectives, the cost objectives, the resource objectives, and that it actually is delivering the functionality that we're talking about. And being able to look at that as we go on a more real-time basis is going to allow us to make decisions and adjustments in a more real-time fashion when we still have an opportunity to have effect on any corrective actions that are needed. So in that whole concept of project and resource managers collaborating, really having tools where a project manager can go in and either on an hours or an FTE basis say, hey, these are the skills or roles that I need on the project, and having the resource manager saying, all right, let's find some people who have those skills or roles and see what their remaining availability is. And then I can tag them for your project and say, by the way, you can have them half time over a 2-month period, or you can have them a quarter time over a 3-month period, whatever makes the most sense. And the idea of using that by play, but also making those decisions based upon real objective data on what's currently in the pipe, what's currently actively being worked, and seeing what really true remaining availability exists for these resources. Being able to do this stuff from a generic capacity planning perspective for look-aheads, and as well as tactically being able to put specific people on projects. These are good tools to have in these PPM solutions. At the end of the day, if you do this in a structured fashion in a common tool set, you can very easily get different views or pivots on this information. So a department can look and see, do I have the headcount to do all this? Do I have the right skill sets? Am I short on DBAs, but I have a surplus of developers? Those types of things can all be gotten. So even though we're planning this information on a project-by-project basis, there's a functional benefit by being able to kind of flip that data and look at it from a resource or functional area type of perspective, or even a discipline or role basis as well. We talked about the concept of getting information from finance. By being able to have line item detail for budgets and financial models, whether they be budgets or actuals or revised forecasts, and being able to have the line item details, the things that you would typically track in a budgeting tool, and be able to plan those things, share that information with finance, get actuals to track against those, and get that information on a relatively real-time basis. Typically, financial information is more periodic in nature, whether you get weekly or monthly updates, et cetera. The idea there is to have visibility to that dimension of your projects and or potential projects, so that you have that information at your fingertips as part of that project portfolio management hub. The financials is a key piece of that you want visibility into and tracking the health of your project. And just overall, communication between silos. Tools today are really starting to leverage, and we do this now. We're leveraging more of, at EPM Live, the more social media type of approaches to communicating on projects. So as opposed to just making available schedules and assigning people tasks and notifying them of those types of things, leveraging things like threaded discussions, or being able to have comment logs on work items or on projects that people from different parts of the organization can actually chime in on. We're having more social-based type of notifications where no matter if you're getting tasks or you need to approve something or something gets put on your plate of any type, to be able to have one bin where you can see all those and then get to those from a central place without having to monitor different areas or different projects are things that are all possible. So the idea is leveraging those things in a common tool set really kind of makes that social sphere or social approach to managing your projects helps make people much more effective, and things don't get lost in people's individual emails. So another business benefit is improved decision-making and accountability. So a strong PPM solution in this realm will provide business intelligence and very other powerful reporting capabilities. What this does is, by having a central solution with a common set of approaches, more structured data than unstructured data, it allows you to have one single repository for a single source of the truth on your projects and project and work-related data. If we do that and have a single source of that, the realization of things like fully automated dashboards and reporting that become more of a natural output of the process becomes much more of a realistic goal, or much more of a highly probable proposition for your organization. If we do this correctly, that should be an automated process and put information at the fingertips of all stakeholders, executives, team members, resource managers, project managers, all the people that participate in the project, and have that information be appropriate for their level or their role. Also, as we talked about earlier, more accurate and timely information. You distribute the workload. Instead of making this big research projects to compile reports, if each person or role is responsible for their small piece of the overall, and they can turn that data around quicker individually and then have the aggregate of all that turn around more quickly, you get more accurate and timely information and updates to that information that benefit the entire organization. And if we have more current information on a more timely basis, then management decisions about project investments can be more timely, and actually can save us time and money by making decisions and adjustments at a time when we can still have an effect. The old concept of getting financial reports at the end of the month, essentially by the time you got an accounting report, that's historical information. In some cases, it may already be telling you that we're already sunk or we're already dead on this project. And the idea is having more real-time turnaround on this stuff makes us more nimble and have more ability to adjust. Also, as an output to that is then we get more real-time insight into which projects require more oversight and controls. With our metrics, our key performance indicators or KPIs, the reporting standards and variances that we might be tracking, we get early warning on which projects are going to require much more rigorous attention from us, or maybe tighter controls in order to make sure we right the ship or make sure we deliver the project within reason. And so the idea of having a good automated PPM solution with this more real-time data really provides an overall business benefit in being able to be more proactive and more effective in making adjustments and saving the company time and money. So from a portfolio management perspective, the things that EPM Live is doing is providing portfolio visibility on all work and having as many different views of the portfolio or multiple portfolios that you want, looking at in-process measurements and KPIs like you see with the color graphical indicators, being able to look at current dollars and schedule information and work utilization and other things, and any other metrics you want, having them readily available to you in a single home or a single place that anyone with the access can get to is just a good way to provide visibility rather than sending things around or pulling things together and building reports in order to send off to folks. Just from a dashboard perspective, the way the form and formats and the way that you will actually surface data in a good PPM system. Here's some examples from EPM Live where a combination of charting, dashboarding, and objective data, combining all these data types, can give a certain audience, in this case people that might be interested in more of the financial aspects of project health or portfolio health, could be looking at these things as part of a dynamic view of the current data set at any given point in time. The tools that we're using, we're based on the Microsoft platform, and we use things like SQL Server and SQL Server reporting and all the Office tools and just SharePoint data visualization tools and our own charting web parts, etc., provide you a very flexible or robust way to surface data and disseminate information to people in your organization, all because we end up with standard PPM tools and processes. And we talked about what-if resource modeling, but that analysis that you're looking at to where we can make decisions based upon current information, we could be looking at that from a resource perspective. Do we have the headcount now the way this portfolio is lining out to do the work? Do we have to shift things out in time? Do we have to cut a project? Do we have to staff up or contract? Those are the types of trade-off decisions that you need objective data in order to meet and have it be current. Same things can happen from a financial perspective. Do we have the budget? Do we have the dollars? Do we have the cash flow to do these portfolios? Or do we have to make hard choices and selections or possibly defer and resequence what we're doing into different time frames in order to accommodate it all? Also, streamline processes, PMO processes and templates is a business benefit that comes out of a PPM process and a tool set. Okay? And to get benefits in a lot of organizations, you don't have to do overkill up front. This is an evolution. It is a gradual maturity for organizations to get better and better over time. So implementing an overall project management framework with just a few key components can provide great value to the business. For example, let's just say we have consistent methodology with basic phases and gates to our projects so that we have a common approach to doing our projects, and then when we roll up data, have common metrics and common guideposts and common checkpoints that we're looking at so that we have consistency in the way we're managing projects. And other key controlling artifacts, like maybe making sure that we have some type of a business case or justification for the projects, making sure we always have a project schedule that we can track and keep up to date and manage for in-process management. And just an overall status report format, for example, that gives people a common view of the health and the status and the progress of a project at any given point in time. These are just a few of the common things that can be easily deployed or easily put into play. But at the end of the day, it enables a common streamlined process for the PMO and the rest of the organization that the PMO is supporting. Okay? And it also, while enabling individual projects to follow maybe, say, a key set of standards, it doesn't mean it has to be a one-size-fits-all proposition. You can enable projects and different types of projects, or maybe even different parts of your organizations that do different types of project and work, to maybe have variations and have different methodologies for the type of projects that they work on. And the idea is to have similar metrics, things like cost metrics and schedule metrics and other things that may be common across different methodologies, to be able to roll those together into common reporting, but yet give different parts of the organization the latitude to configure and to implement methodologies that are appropriate to them. And even if it's not different, you may have different types of work. You may have large things like large capital projects that require a lot of rigor and just a more robust process. You might have lighter weight, quick turning projects that really should have a quicker turnaround on approval and execution and those types of things. So maybe just doing things based on the size and the weight and the magnitude, being able to do things in a different way across that. And a good PPM tool should have the flexibility to accommodate those different methodologies, whatever the delineations are. So for example, being able to have standardized templates and forms so that when you have an intake of a project and you have attributes and characteristics and the grading of your projects and the quantification and the evaluation of those projects, be able to classify and characterize them in consistent ways across your organization and have common ways that you calculate benefit and ROI and other things like that. And the idea is, based on different project types, these forms can be different in our solution. And the idea here is to be able to have consistent capture and definition of projects and work so that there is consistency in delivery and selection. The other key piece is, in this day and age, the automation of process is key. If you really want to be effective and you want to streamline your processes and you want to have quicker turnarounds and eliminate wasted or dead time that happens in manual disconnected processes, then being able to automate approval and promotions and the different promoting different projects through their different life cycles and getting the approvals that are needed along the way, and tracking of deliverables and the objective measures of whether or not we've actually completed and met the requirements of certain stages or gates. Those are things that need to be able to model in a tool. And a collaborative web-based platform like EPM Live allows you to do these types of things. So the whole idea of StageGates, part of the attributes of your project may be a whole StageGate process where you're managing either a life cycle or a series of gates that go through that life cycle of your project. And you may have StageGate ownership and people that really manage different pieces of that StageGate. And you may even have different data elements or different types of data that may be appropriate for different stages. And some of these may come into play and actually appear or make themselves required at certain stages. And the idea of a tool that uses workflow, that uses conditional data fields and other things like that depending on your process is something that helps facilitate and actually make the tool relevant to you at every stage of the life cycle. And I guess the other key, and one of the things that's really strong with what we're doing recently with EPM Live is the whole idea saying is that, it's not a one-size-fits-world out there. You need a power of choice. And if you're a multi-dimensional organization and you're doing different types of projects, if you're doing traditional waterfall projects, if you're really in an IT area that you're managing an application portfolio and the work surrounded around that, if you're a product company and you have a new product development methodology and other approaches that you use to that, or if you have professional services within your organization that's an arm to support your products, or just a services company in general, what's a methodology and the things and the components to that type of process that you may want. They have a lot of common threads, but they are variations of the theme. And the idea of being able to provide different types of applications, and we have these things pre-built to start you off day one with those types of things, but have the flexibility to be able to configure and tailor those so that you can actually make them specific to your particular organization and make sure that the tool is fitting to your work process and not the other way around. In general, overall improved organizational productivity is a net benefit of putting in a good PPM tool and process. So by utilizing a PPM tool, it enables a more predictable process to be implemented because we can define it, it's structured, the data entry and the management, the workflow process and the business process that it promotes you through is more consistent, and it's a more common form or a hub for people to get that information and to interact with the process. And if you choose the right PPM tool, it will allow customization to ensure that the tool matches the way your organization works. Too many in the past, and some even today, are rigid in the way they promote or enforce a methodology. And I think the flexibility for where you're at today and not knowing where you may be going in the future, you want to be able to show that it can grow and flex with you over time. And to that end, I mentioned in the prior section how EPM Live has moved towards the pre-built applications and the variations of those that might apply themselves to various disciplines or type of projects or different types of work that are going on. We also, within our tool set, are really promoting the concept of what we call communities. Communities might be those different constituencies within your company that have different flavors on what they're doing. And by simply setting up communities and maybe installing the proper application variations for those different communities, you might have a different menu set. Like, for example, the full screenshot you see here might be for a traditional project management organization that's managing traditional portfolios, projects, tasks, risks, issues, change requests, documents, etc. But if you're in the products community, you may be looking at product roadmaps and product lines and releases of product and other things like that that are more specific to that but have some common threads in their managing projects and work, and they're assigning dates and durations and assigning resources and work item elements. But the idea of their nomenclature and their process may be different. So the idea is you can have as many different audiences but have them really all be in the same solution, in this case, EPM Live. So something of a common flexibility approach, I think, especially in today's organizations, you need to be able to flex and give people the power of choice. So PMO and PPM Success. When you look at, all the literature that's out there and the potential business benefits that are available from successfully implementing a PMO and a PPM process and tool, those benefits are compelling and lead many organizations to really get incentivized to implement a PMO or similar function within their organization. Gartner research, however, estimates that PMOs have a failure rate of 50% or more on their first try. A lot of reasons for that. Different PMOs have different charters. Some are formal, some are informal, some are more chartered to be just a glorified reporting organization than a full functional PMO. Essentially, the most common reasons for failure of these PMOs in these early tries is, one is a neglecting to improve the PPM process itself in parallel with the PPM tool implementation. As much as it's preached by vendors and consultants, et cetera, there's a lot of folks that say if I just get the tool, if I just put the technology in place, it'll improve and solve all my ills. Most estimates on the technology component of doing this, it's probably about 20% of the equation. It's the PPM process that you put in place. It's addressing the culture that you have in your organization. It's organizational readiness. It's ability and willingness to adopt change. And also trying to line the PPM tool realistically with where you're at today from a PPM maturity perspective. If you overshoot that and overestimate where you're at or what your organization's ability to sustain is, you can overreach and put something in that's too complex that, given the state of the organization, they're not ready to feed it, sustain it, and maintain it in a meaningful way, and people can give up on it because it's just too much for where they're at. So the idea is to really improve the PPM process in parallel with the PPM tool implementation, but also try to synchronize that PPM tool implementation with realistically where you're at as an organization from a maturity perspective. It's good to try and stretch the organization, but you don't want to overreach to the point where you break it. And then the other common thing that's always cited is lack of true executive sponsorship. These things do not happen successfully totally from a bottoms-up consensus type of approach. That's nice to have that impetus and having people from the functional areas and teams within your organization recognizing the need, but without good top-down executive sponsorship and active promotion, sometimes that's the glue that has to be there to help these things succeed at the end of the day. So when you're choosing a PPM solution, choose a PPM vendor that offers a few things. Make sure that they have proven PPM expertise, not only from a technology perspective and that they've been able to develop software, but they really know the subject matter, that they have consultants that actually know the business, have deployed it, and have deployed it in a real world, and hopefully have experience in the industry that you're in. And also make sure that they provide a comprehensive, flexible solution that will lead to successful adoption within your organization, meaning can it be modeled to look like you or look like where you want to be? And those things are key pieces of success that you should consider. So with that, I just thought I'd do a brief demonstration of some capabilities of the tool set so you can see some of this stuff in action, and then hopefully just show you enough that might make you want to explore us further. We're definitely not going to be comprehensive here given the time we have today. This concept of being online and doing this in either a SaaS or in an online or in an on-premise model, the solution that we have basically has the exact same capabilities no matter which deployment mechanism you use, whether you're online with us or whether you deploy it in-house in your own SharePoint environment. But the concept here of having a web-based collaborative forum, in this case I'm logged in as the Steve Masters person who has certain rights and capabilities, and he now has a page that's dedicated totally to him as a landing page. He is in what we call the projects community. He has a certain set of menus that's available to him for that community, as well as maybe being tailored based upon the role that he has and the permissions that he has. And here in one place, maybe not having to look at a total portfolio depending on his role, maybe just have access to the projects that he is either a member of or an owner of, and being able to, through hyperlink, drill into the properties for any one of those projects. Also, things that are particular to Steve. If you really want this to be a work management, active portfolio management and project management tool set, Steve is going to get assigned work. So having a My Work area, something that he could either do here or via his Outlook, being able to look at things like issues and tasks and backlog items and service requests and workflow approvals and other things that he might need, all show up for him in one central place, no matter how many different projects or how many different work types he's on. And also we had talked about some of that social media type of approaches, like being able to comment on work streams and being able to make comments on tasks or projects and being able to post those in a very social media type of format and actually have them show up in his comment stream. So as he's collaborating with other users, he can see comments he's made on different tasks and projects as well as the replies from other people and have it maintain a live active stream of that type of information. As well as being able to just see different types of notifications. Much like you would see in your Facebook today, you can actually see notifications here in a stream very nicely. So without having to go to different places or leave here to go to my email, and by the way, they can all be supplemented with email notification if you prefer. But the idea here is that it's really kind of collaborating and communicating in a variety of new social media type of ways and formats. Now, if I wanted to go to a full portfolio of projects, What's nice here is, for example, this may be a portfolio that's driven by this projects group, and a portfolio that has everything to do with this project group and that this project group has access to. Or I may be dividing portfolios into things like programs or having them align with different initiatives. So as I'm looking through these things and being able to take a look and say, show me all the projects that are associated with the e-commerce initiative or portfolio, or certain programs, and have different projects that are affiliated with those. I can look at those and affiliate all my projects with those different types of portfolios or programs. So as I go look at a portfolio and I want to look at a variety of different views of that portfolio, I could say, oh, show me an executive summary of projects by portfolio. And then those portfolios or programs that I have actually put together will say, show me the cost reduction portfolio and all the projects that are associated with those, and be able to drill into the details of any one of those projects. For example, if I go into the Xbox DVD development project, and I go in and I want to look at all the different pieces or data elements that are in there, you can configure what data elements that you track about your projects, and have this be kind of the succinct set of what I would say data points about this project. It's almost like its own virtual workspace on this project, where you can actually have documents and issues and risks and properties around your projects. If I go back into the project portfolio and I went in to look at a project like this, I can do a few things. I can either drill in and look at the project attributes and details in total, like I'm looking at here, things like the classifications like project type, what applications or portfolios they might be affiliated with, metrics like about how they're doing on overdue tasks and work health, other things that we might have scored on this regarding things like strategic alignment and cost reduction ratings and just overall weighted score. And even things like this down below, looking at the schedule here in this almost virtual workspace, and looking at the entire schedule for the project, looking at things like any active issues that are on our plate, or any documents that are revolving around this. With that, I could look at these things in total in kind of a comprehensive workspace like this, or I could select the project just like I did before and say, let me select this project and do this concept of associated items. So if I was really just interested in showing me the issues associated with this particular project, from a portfolio visibility perspective, I can just look at the issues rather than having to look at all the data around that particular project. The key there is that part of this is part of an overall portfolio execution piece, but also the pieces here on determining things like our scoring on projects, etc. Like if I wanted to look at my executive summary, okay, let me look at the project assessment view. My apologies. So for example, here, like metrics on how we scored in different categories, what the overall prioritization scores are, being able to rank or sort them by those different prioritization scores and determine what our highest priority projects are. Or maybe even look at these things in terms of what we talked about before, looking at portfolio bubble charts and being able to say, let's get a graphical view of what all this scoring means. So for example, I might be looking at things like strategic alignment versus risk, and then maybe a budget ranking, and then being able to apply those things and see where my projects fall in those. So in this case, if I'm looking at strategic alignment versus risk, I probably want low risk but high strategic alignment, meaning that this quadrant would probably be the sweet spot where I'd like to have my projects. And then the general size or budget of those projects indicated by the size of the bubble as opposed to the color, which might indicate the project type. Obviously, this is demo data, but you get the idea. Some of the other pieces in here, being able to look at resource information and being able to look at individual projects and actually do capacity plans and budgets against your projects as you're bringing them on board. So for example, if I wanted to go in here in this proposed project called Strategic Merger Evaluations, and I wanted to say edit the costs, I can have a cost plan or a budget around that that would have the cost categories that are specific to your organization. So for example, I might have labor categories, I might have material, contracts, other, on a line item detail, and then I could go in here and say, you know, I'm going to plan on this in terms of hours of effort or whatever it might be. I say I need 40 hours this month, and that translates into $1. Or I might have hard dollar categories like materials. I got $5,000 of material this month. But it's all translating into a total budget for this based on line item detail and on a time phase basis. You can also then do on the same basis benefits, and the benefits could be delineated in terms of maybe revenue, could be delineated in terms of cost reduction and other things, and when you might want to achieve or think you're going to realize those things. And start comparing the costs against the benefits and the timing of when you're going to do those things. And track cost types like actual costs and revise forecasts to those categories as well. If you're going to build capacity plans and the resource needs for your project, to be able to edit a resource plan for that potential project and look at it long before I have a schedule. Be able to go in here and say, for this particular project, I need a certain resource type. This could either be a generic resource category, like I need a project manager, and I can plan it in terms of hours or FTEs per month, for example, and say, okay, I need 80 hours a month, roughly half time. I can do that and actually look down below and see other resources with those skill sets to see the remaining availability. You know, if I needed a business analyst on here, I could take a business analyst and actually drag that one up here into this particular project, and then also be able to plan out that resource as well on the same basis. Maybe I only need him about quarter time that month for 2 months on the business analyst up front. So the idea is I can start planning at a high level, either named individuals or generic resource types, to make those things happen. The reason I show you this is that you start planning these things on proposed and active projects on a resource-by-resource basis, and then you can do things like say, you know, let me look at what that means across all my projects. And from a resource analyzer perspective, I can go in here and start looking at information regarding my different resources and different organizations across. So I can say for this particular department, I could actually say my department has these demands on these projects across, and I can select different resource groups, different groups of projects, et cetera, and get real-time analysis on what that means to do all that. Or I may look at the entire mix of proposed and active projects and say, you know, I really want to be able to model this. I want to be able to do what-if analysis. So if I basically take this and I want to look at what it's really going to take to do these types of things, I could say, take all those potential projects, and I can say if I did them all, this is what it's going to take from a cost or from a resource perspective, and be able to maybe even apply targets against that. So I could actually go in and say, if I look at the budget, basically have it render and telling me what the current mix of projects, where that's going to have me over or under budget in these different cost categories or resource types. And here I'm looking at it from more of a resource perspective. But then I could start saying, what if I took lower priority projects and I started deselecting those? What would that mean, and how would that change the scheme down below here? And do things like take and deselect projects, or potentially take other projects and move them out in time, and see how that might affect the mix of the costs, et cetera, that I'm working with. So portfolio analysis online by basically having this information in a common PPM tool using a common PPM process. I know we're coming up to the end of the hour. The key here is that if we have a good framework, a good process, a good PPM tool that allows us to store all dimensions of data regarding our projects and potential projects, and allows us to do analysis in a flexible way, we can have a lot of powerful input and benefit in business from PPM. And whether you want to be part of, say, a project organization, or let's say a more product development organization, it's a different community. If you'll see, we're in the same solution, but I may have different menu items that actually have different functionality depending on me being in a more product development rather than a more traditional capital projects type of world. And the idea is that we can tailor the user experience based upon the audience, but have it all contribute to an overall PPM solution and PPM data set. With that, I'd like to close out. And if you want to contact us, ask more questions of us, You can go to www.epmlive.com. Generally, you can contact us at info@epmlive.com or at the toll-free number you see there below. If you'd like to talk with me directly or contact me directly, feel free to email me on that. And we really offer you and encourage you to try us out. We have different editions of our tool sets, and we make available free trials for you to get hands-on with the solution and have support from us and kind of guiding you through that and giving you overviews. So if you've seen enough today to give you interest for us to be a viable PPM solution for you and your organization and really encompassing all work, we'd love to talk with you and have you try us out. So with that, thank you for your time this morning, and I hope you all have a great day.